So if we treat absolute value bars like brackets, here, throughout the whole thing in part A, you see that you have 4 absolute value signs. I'm going to color code this one here in green because I want to see where does that one end. So this is my first absolute value. It ends right here. So I'm going to evaluate inside of that like it were brackets. And my second absolute value, I'm going to start with a different color, starts right here. I can do that one in red. It ends right there. So as far as when we're evaluating this, before we change any negatives to positives, we first have to get a single number inside of an absolute value bar. So my first absolute value bar here, negative 26 plus 13. I'll get negative 13. I'll keep those bars green to match with the ones above. Then we still have minus 2. And then our red absolute value bar, we have 10 minus 16, which will be negative 6. Once you have a single number inside of an absolute value, then you can change it to what its value is. What is the absolute value of negative 13? 13. So I can just write 13. I'm still going to have minus 2, and sometimes when I evaluate them, I put them in regular brackets just to hold it. Because right now, this negative 2 is outside of this absolute value. When there's no symbol in between two things, it's like there's a multiplication there. So when I evaluate what is the absolute value of negative 6, it's 6. I'm going to put that in regular brackets because then later I'm going to be triggered to say, hey, I recognize that there's multiplication right there. I still have to do my order of operations. So my next order of operations would be to multiply. And I would get 13 minus 12, which is equal to 1. So it's important to color code them, because if I take those colors away and someone were to misread this and think, oh, there's an absolute value bar there and an absolute value bar there, and there's only one number in between them, then you might be tempted to make that a positive 2. So you have to make sure you look from left to right and see where does one absolute value bar start and where does it end. In our second example here, we have one bar here and one bar here, so we only have one set of absolute value bars in part B. And for part B, we want to evaluate when x is equal to 2. So we're going to plug in x equals 2. So we've got negative 2, and then there's an x squared, so it would be 2 squared minus 3 times 2 minus 4. And that's what's inside my absolute value. When you're substituting a number in, again, often makes sense to put that number in brackets. Now we do our order of operations. Exponents first, you'd have negative 2. 2 squared is 4. Then you can multiply minus 6 minus 4. Again, we can't take any of those negatives away until we've got a single number inside. So here, we're going to get negative 8 minus 10, which is negative 18. And now that we've got a single number inside of my absolute value, the absolute value of negative 18 is positive 18. So as far as looking forward to your quizzes and tests in this unit, there seems to be a lot of questions that relate to this one, where we're actually evaluating questions with absolute values. So we need to know, we have to treat them like brackets, we have to get a single number inside of them before we evaluate their absolute value, and then we'll be able to figure it out. Questions you can do for this one, and I'll give you some time to try them, are 12, 13, and 14.